Welcome to the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Good day, fine folks, and welcome to episode 114 of The Rewind. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're not, well, welcome back. The Rewind is the only weekly podcast spotlighting the development of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen and its burgeoning community. We're not devs, we're just big fans of what this classically spirited MMO plans to bring to the table. On this week's show, we're deep diving into the August developer livestream, shining a light on some excellent community content, and we're opening up the lore tome for another story. The sunny skies of August are here, and we're just getting warmed up. So join me, Theric, and my sun-drenched co-host, Desrin, for this week's Rewind. Oof. All right, Des. Well, I have been busy, as I know you have. We both had a late night last night, because last night was Thursday, and we were watching the dev stream and all that good stuff. But when I haven't been busy with Pantheon stuff, I want to mention a game that I've been playing on the Switch with my wife, who, as I've said before, is not a gamer. She's very much not a gaming person, but she loves like murder mysteries, and Sherlock Holmes is one of her jams. And we found a game on the Switch that I got to give a shout out to. It's what is it called? Crimes and Punishments. It's Sherlock Holmes.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. It seems like there's a lot of shovelware on the Switch, and I kind of looked at it the first time. I was like, oh, it's whatever. It's one of those point and click things. It's really good. The company that makes it, Frogwares, is really good. And there's a couple of them, these Sherlock Holmes games. And there's another one that's in like the Cthulhu universe. It's the Sunken City.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
yeah, I'd be into that.
Yeah, it's been really fun, and the quality game. I have to give them a shout out. So yeah, that's what we've been doing in our downtime. What have you been up to this week?
Dude, there's too many like good games happening right now. I've still continued to miss out on Stray, which is just sitting in my library.
You were really excited for that, I know.
And I already missed out on that, because that totally spiraled out of control. Cult of the Lamb,
yeah, you
launched
mentioned
yesterday.
That one too. You said August 11th was a big day for you because that was coming out.
Yeah, and not to mention, yesterday they announced a new Path of Exile League, which looks amazing, like probably one of the best ever. And I'm just sitting here like, I haven't had time to play anything except for like Vanguard Emulator and lately ESO because of the 101. Mm-hmm. And I'm in this weird place in my life where I don't have that much capacity, even though there's so many good games out there. It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
But it's a good problem to have, right? There's too many good games.
It is a good problem.
I have to shout that out.
Yeah, it is a good problem to have. There's a podcast I used to listen to where they had like a bumper, and it was just too many games. That was like a little jingle. And because it's so true for everybody who's a gamer, you all know the feeling of having too many games to play and not enough time. So yeah, gamer problems. What are you going to do? But
well, maybe you should go into some gamer solutions. I'm trying to make something up here.
You're problem solving. You're like problem oriented. But I've got a solution for our gamer problems, actually, because our adventure party is keeping us on the path and keeping us hungry for more. So this week we've got Ziplocks on the Dark Mer Rogue, got Sparrow on the Elf Ranger, Bounty Code on the Human Wizard, Screech on the Scar Bard, Wiki Woo on the Human Enchanter, Shuriken on the Dwarf Cleric, Horsasaurus on the Human Warrior, Fury Wrath on the Archai Summoner, Pavejo on the Gnome Wizard, Theldrin on the Dark Mer Paladin, Sarah Avienda on the Elf Druid, and new member Churro Dude on the Halfling Dire Lord. So new Patreon member, and got to shout them out on their great combo choice there. Everybody loves the Shire Lord as they've become known. So awesome to have you, man. And the adventure party always knows the path, but there's always room for more. So if you want to shout out on the show just like that, check out our Patreon campaign. It's linked in the show notes. And if you just want to bring some hype during the premiere, you can always use the super chat feature as well. Donations, of course, never required, but always appreciated. We do this because it's fun and we want to build community, and well, because staying Pantheon patient is most certainly not a waste of your time. So we hope you'll stay patient with us, at least for the next hour or so. But Desrin, are you ready to dive into the pool with me here?
It's pretty warm. I think it's time.
This week in Visionary Realms News and Notes. All right, well, let's get to it then, and let's dive into this month's, I should say, a developer live stream. We got Minus and Ronick, as usual, with Ronick back from injured reserve, sporting his Cobalt bracer, if you will. But that didn't stop him from giving us a breakdown of what to expect in the upcoming pre-alpha test. Most importantly, they confirmed that it's going to take place in September. They didn't give an exact date, which was, I'm sure everybody was hoping to get, but still confirmed it's in September. And Desiree, you and I had pondered whether there would be sort of a August warm-up test, so to speak, to kick the tires on the new build, if you will, and make sure September testing was, ready to go and good to go.
Yeah.
But it looks like they're just going to stick with that September target and go with that. We did manage to dig up bit more information from Ben Dean, project producer, in the chat during the live stream, because somebody did ask if there was going to be a set time. In fact, it was Nathan Napalm, our friend, said is there going to be a set time for the pre-alpha server in terms of how long it's going to be up for testing? And Ben clarified they don't have that information yet, or they haven't decided yet. So a little extra information there. And there was another question that came up during the live stream, and we'll talk about this, Des, but because we had talked about it a couple weeks ago, whether Co-Carnage's gameplay was going to be on one of the regular pre-alpha servers that all the VIPs are going to be on and accessing, as it goes. And Ben Dean did comment on this, and he said, they hope to have him on those pre-alpha servers, yes. But said if there are tech issues for whatever reason, we'll have to put them on a closed server. But of course, their first choice would be the regular pre-alpha server. So, it's good to hear that that's their first choice. And I think we would both agree it's the right choice from a tester's perspective, just to have him in as on the regular server. Putting him in a closed environment, it would be a bummer, I think. And it kind of would run the risk of making this feel a bit more like an artificial test. I kind of wonder if they're afraid of the same things. People pledging at the PA level is just a pretty small handful of people. But, if Co is going to be on a regular server and that sort of becomes known, they might actually get a ton more PA pledges just, to be able to experience that with him, right? He's got a big crowd, big following. So it's a double-edged sword in terms of that would be a pretty good thing from a financial perspective, all those PA pledges. But maybe they just know that, the fear is the same as when they open alpha and those floodgates are open and, you get people bombarding the servers. I kind of wonder, if that's maybe in the back of their mind about the potential for that. So that's just me sort of thinking out loud. And, like I said, it wouldn't feel right if he's just on a server by himself, because he's going to need a group, right? It's a group based game. I mean, he's not going to solo for the entire test. And we know that, he's going to be streaming his gameplay like they talked about on the last roundtable. Ben Dean followed up on this a little bit and just talked about other streaming options and just reminded everybody that, it's still in pre-alpha. Everything is still under NDA. So there would be nobody else streaming it without authorization. They don't have any current plans to stream the session themselves, which is important if we're talking about this code thing. So more, they do want to do more gameplay streams later on, but for the purposes of this, it doesn't sound like it's in the cards for the devs to get in there and play with Co like they've done in the past. Anyway, that's a lot of things I've said. There's a lot to unpack there, but what's your read on this situation?
First off, I really hope they do a shakeout or some kind of stress test ahead of time, because they need to make sure this stuff is ready. I think not having Co on an open pre-alpha session or server, with other testers running around, in his group or whatever, that really takes a lot of the wind out of the sails that came from the Co stream, or the announcement where, Co was on stream with them. And, he said for the first time, all these, for the first time, he'd be streaming pre-alpha. But if that's not with other testers, it's not really a first time anything. It's just kind of another Co stream with the devs. And I'll be honest, that'd be pretty disappointing after kind of that whole announcement thing. And so I'm sure they're going to do whatever they can to make that happen. but I can't stress enough how important I think it is for them to follow through on that, and that Co literally gets to run around with other testers just naturally, because that's the monumental thing here, I think, is you can stage a lot when you're in a group with devs and stuff, right? But when people are doing whatever they want to do, that's wild. Like that is the game.
Yeah, that is
to some
the game.
extent.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for natural play where, there's no wool over the eyes. There's no, pre-planning to show off only the good things. It's just hopefully just Co trying to break the game like everyone else.
Yeah, no, exactly. And, it all is dependent upon that networking code, right? And how it's going to work and how many people are going to be there and what kind of technical issues they may experience. Like I said, Ben definitely said that's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. So maybe just a matter of covering bases and, on the chance that there is some technical issue they haven't foreseen, it would still go ahead and then it would just be a different scenario. But for now, let's keep our fingers crossed and look for that September test with Co as being the next really major thing we have to look forward to. But there was more than just that in talking about in this dev stream, and they talked about a lot of the other things we can expect to see in this pre-alpha test.
Oh yeah.
One being classes. And this was a question you and I were talking about a lot. So they confirmed, here's the classes for the pre-alpha test: the Dire Lord, Rogue, Monk, Wizard, Enchanter, Shaman, and then the Cleric. So the Cleric is the big deal here. That's the new one, the new addition. We talked about this on Pantheon Plus EU at length about what the implications of having the Cleric in are. So, I mean, basically there's going to be a ton of them running around because it's the new hotness,
probably
the new toy to play with. It's a great, we're going to get a greater understanding of what exactly a barrier healer looks like and feels like. And that was something that was brought up on the show last night because it's sort of a new concept. And then learning how they envision the Cleric behaving in a group, front lines melee, staying in the back. We'll have to see because it's like I said, a different sort of concept for this archetype. And I got to say, it's nice to see that they have another healing archetype finally being added. So the Shaman is no longer the only option. Are you planning on giving the Cleric a test drive at all or not?
No, man. I'm going to stick to the Shaman probably until Druid is out, I think. I think having that experience to give feedback on all the changes, all the past of the Shaman, culminating to wherever we're at, I think that context is really important for feedback. And, you guys may not know as much, but I've been pretty vocal about the Shaman in the past. And so it's really good to kind of have another healer type, though. So having a Cleric instead of, a group having two Shamans, for example. Mm-hmm. So I'm really, really curious to see how that makes the game feel in contrast to double healers in the past, or even a group that only has one healer, but it's a Cleric. So, like, do you think groups are going to be surviving more, or?
I do, absolutely. I think the Shaman is going to finally get to play to its real strengths, which, healing is a big part of their thing, but also their buffs, their boons and banes as they were, when they get to lean into that role a little more, because they're not going to be so dependent on their healing abilities. For challenging
Are you going to roll a Cleric, actually? I didn't ask.
It's funny you should ask that. I hadn't even thought about it.
I mean, because the Ranger's not.
Yeah, right. The Ranger's not in. But I kind of love the Enchanter. I have to say I've played it in the past in testing, and I love the Enchanter. I might roll a Cleric. I'm gonna think about that. I think I might do it actually, because I think I could go for something different, and
it would be spicy and new.
It would be spicy and new. That's what I'm all about,
Go for the Battle Cleric. Pretend you're a Ranger.
Yeah. Well, I'll make it the most rangery Cleric you've ever seen. I'll just throw my hammer at things and see how that works out. So yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. Maybe. While the Cleric, did get all the attention on the stream, I also want to point out that, this is going to be the first time the testers get to a lot of the new and improved versions of these classes. And like the Monk is we've seen so much of it lately with all the fancy things that it can do now. A lot of this stuff is brand new. And even though we've seen a lot of it lately, there's been improvements made across the board with all the classes. They went through 3 of them in the dev update stream, and that being the Dire Lord, the Shaman, and the Wizard. I really loved how this was presented. I think just in terms of presentation, it was done so well.
Yeah.
Tehom gave a really nice detailed breakdown of some of these changes. And, it's a lot to parse. And there is a lot of information here. So I don't think we'll get through all of it. But I want to give a couple of my big takeaways from this, and I'll ask you for yours too, Des. But first up, the first one for me, and I mentioned this on stream, is that the Dire Lord's techniques, they showed how they're driven, at least in part, by their statistics. The intelligence statistic in particular is super interesting. So one of the abilities they showed was Essence Harvester. It's an early melee technique that's, I think Tehom said, is available to all Dire Lords, regardless of the weapon being used. It's similar to the other one of the Monk that can't remember the name of, but it's an early one that's ubiquitous.
Level 1, you get it. It works on any weapon.
Yeah, something like that. Level 1, level 2, something like that. Anyway, so this skill, or this technique rather, does 100% weapon damage and generates their resource, which is essence. It gets a 25% attribute bonus from intelligence and a 10% bonus from strength. So it's got that intricacy, which was a theme throughout these class skill updates. So that really caught my eye, and I think that it's feeding into that aspect we talked about, where they're giving unusual attributes importance for the various classes. So I think of a Dire Lord, and you think intelligence and strength are going to be important. That's really neat for a melee class, for a tank archetype, if you will. What'd you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of a lot of people are going to get some throwbacks to maybe some other games that used I almost say off meta attributes in interesting ways. Because they're out there, and a lot of us have great experiences with those. But I think the huge takeaway from all these ability examples is just their interplay with not just attributes but skills too. And Tehom made sure to point that out, even saying that they're doing this so that a lot of abilities won't need any kind of arbitrary higher tier or upgrade. That's just the same skill but more power, same ability but more powerful.
That's right.
Yeah, we see that all the time, right? You've got our attack 1, attack 2, attack 3, fireball 7.
Good old EverQuest 2, the standard bearer for that thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll admit Vanguard is the same. But I'm a huge fan of this kind of design. And then you couple this with mastery, which we haven't seen in a while, admittedly. But yeah, it means your abilities can just still grow. They can still increase in power without that cheesy, Fireball 7, or even just like changing the names with same ability. That's annoying too. Now, I really like this approach, man. It's not new. Other games have done this kind of a thing, but I think it's just going to make the game a lot more comprehensible, I guess. You have your ability, you get to familiarize yourself with it and not feel like, it's been 10 levels since that, I have to go to my trainer and get my upgrade spell. Right. It's like, no, this is part of your build, and eventually either it grows with you or you find something that changes your style of play to replace it. That's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of this feeds into the item prestige as well, because you're going to be looking for items that are not only prestigious because of, for whatever, maybe they look nice or something like that, but they've got those stats that work with your techniques or the off stats. I like it, you said off meta, stats for classes that aren't typically associated. So there's going to be a lot of crossover between items that will be good for numerous classes, So like a Dire Lord there might be a spear that is excellent for a Dire Lord because it's got some, it's got some strength on it, but it's also got intelligence on it. But then maybe you've got another class that needs the strength as well. Anyway, lots of stuff you can do there.
Well, I feel like I really need to throw this out there just because I'm waving the banner here, but this kind of ability setup also just happens to work a lot better with mentoring systems.
Oh, that's a
Because
good
the
point.
abilities, they just scale.
That's a good point.
And so, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Tehom has thought of these things because he's really got this keyed in. He's right on top of this stuff. And well, the other thing about techniques that came up in the stream, Minus said that not all weapon techniques will be available in this upcoming pre-alpha test. He did say melee classes will have more available, and right now it sounds like they're going to be automatically learned as you level up. Which the way he said it kind of suggests to me that this might just be a convenience thing for the pre-alpha test. It doesn't sound like that's how they plan to do it in the real launch game kind of thing. But he did add some specialized ones will need to be purchased rather than just automatically granted. So maybe getting a little bit of a feel for what it's actually going to be like. They sort of finished this up by saying, they want tons of feedback on techniques. It's going to really impact how they do things, how they continue to implement these classes. I'm going to focus a lot of my time in this area, given that information. I think we had asked for this a little while ago. We both said it'd be nice if we had some clear focus testing. What do you want? What are you looking for? So I think I found what I want to really stress. But yeah. And you too, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, again, this is just another huge addition to the game that we haven't really gotten our hands on, right? So I'm probably going to do the same. I'm going to try to unlock as many techniques as possible during this next test. Like if I find, different types of weapon that the shaman can use, you better bet I'm going to be using them. See if I unlock something spicy, I've said spicy a lot. I think I need some curry or something.
I think you're hungry.
I actually am, but we'll save that till after the show.
Gotcha.
But yeah, this is really exciting, and it's going to be very exploratory, I think, for the testers.
Definitely. Yeah, the other thing that got me really excited was a synergy that I saw when Tehom was talking about the shaman. So if you go back and watch the video, look for that memory of flame ability. It's one of those debuffs or like a bane, to use the proper terminology, that the shaman puts on an enemy that's activated when they take fire damage, reducing their fire resistance over a period of time. So you fire wizards out there, you got to wait for me to put that memory of flame on the enemy, and then you give her, right? So it came up on Pantheon plus U as well. I think it was Zelik that I want to say brought it up about the interplay between one class change affecting another class and how they do things. This is a really perfect example of it, because it's going to change how, like I said, a wizard using their fire spells might apply their damage. And I love the way this is not really affecting anything, but I love the flavor text for this skill. It said, you're awakening a long lost memory of a fiery end in your opponent. And I know that's neither here nor there, but I still love it. I don't care, because it's like, oh no, that now they fear the fire, right? It's like such a cool thing. Anyway,
I love that too.
Yeah, I just love it. So many of these class ability updates are leading into that class interdependency. Again, it's one of the founding game tenets. So, there's talk about the vision has changed and this and that and the other. This is what they're doing. This is what it looks like when you look at those tenets. This is what it looks like. So it's an example. We'll dig into this more over time, I'm sure. So, you, I know, have a lot to talk about here with the class updates, and you wanted to say some stuff and talk about some of the abilities they showed. What were your takeaways here, Des?
Well, for me, really, this was the highlight of the stream for me. Nothing against the questions. There's some good questions that, unwrapped a few new things for us. But when it came down to it, this segment was by far the highlight.
Yeah.
And there's so much to take away from this, man. But, in the interest of time, maybe I should speak a bit more broadly. And then maybe remind you guys of some things that if you go back and watch the stream again, or if you haven't watched it yet, maybe you'll pick up on some more little tidbits. But that first thing, we already kind of mentioned, but the Dire Lord ability is scaling off of intellect. And again, Tehom mentioned that you could, and you could see this actually across all three classes they showed, was that a lot of the abilities scale off of skills. And I think this is really huge. It's not just like a generic scaling either. It's like specific things. So for the shaman, since you just mentioned the shaman. So conjuration seems like such a big deal for the shaman, because this skill increases the amount of absorbed hits from their wind ward.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
what?
Yeah.
Or increases the accuracy debuff on Amaurosis, which again, super awesome ability name.
Yeah, it is a good name. You're right.
Yep. But it's like, it's not just this generic thing. It's like a specific bit. Like, okay, there's that. Oh, the wizard, evocation, super important, because that helps reduce the chance of your spells being resisted. That was across a couple of the skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just emphasizing more than just attributes, more than just level, but your skill levels as well. Oh man.
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to looking at those deep stats, right? There was a stream a couple years, 18 months ago now.
Many years ago now, I think.
Where they showed all the deep stats, right? So we know what these skills are. We know that there's a lot of them. And, it's going to be important to develop the ones that you want to focus on. You may not be able to be the master of everything, you may have to specialize. And, which of these abilities, do you really want to be the best? Which do you need to work the
this
best?
really adds so much to the whole idea of like building your character, I think, because now, we've got the LAS, we've got the different interplay between the abilities. So it's not just a generic thing. It's very specific to each ability with matching with the skills. There's so much going on here that I think optimizing your abilities to account for everything it's going to make for some really interesting theory craft for a long time, I think, because I really foresee that it's going to be extremely difficult to just find this is the best thing, right? Especially with all the different situations we're going to be in with the AI. There's just so many layers. And just lastly, I guess alongside that, it also helps to really differentiate people, right? Differentiate builds. So, I mean, what if a Dire Lord really does specialize in intelligence? They're going to gain essence so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that changes how they play versus one that maybe emphasizes strength or something else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's so much that can go on.
Yeah, no, and the more intricate these abilities and techniques and skills become, the more interesting they become, and the more agency the player has in creating the character that they want to play.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of interesting, I have to give a huge shout out to the design team for, I mean, this is going to sound a little salty, but just bear with me. Finally, just increasing the complexity of the abilities. Like, I really had some hope when we saw the monk changes, starting to get a little bit more complex, a little more in depth. And now, man, I have so much more hope seeing all these abilities they showed on the stream. Like, these are interesting. They make you think about what you're doing, like how you're building, even where you're standing. If you the wizard spell, right? Frost spear or something.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Then they also, like you mentioned, with the shaman ability, plays off of other group members. Mm-hmm. The wizard spell reflect, you're reacting to your enemies. It's just such a breath of fresh air compared to that whole like does 200 fire damage or heals target for 150 or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like it's just adding flavor text doesn't help when the ability is really dull and boring.
Yeah, and
that was a huge point of contention for me. Like looking at the skills from the last streams and this just, I mean, to be dramatic about it, it really made my heart soar. Like, well, seeing this complexity.
Yeah, and that's what people are here for. Like that's what people are into this game for. They're not here for another cheap MMO that is made for people. Simple. Like not people who are looking for a simple game, but people who are looking for an experience that doesn't overwhelm them. Like, that's not say Pantheon's going to overwhelm you, but it's going to challenge you. It's going to put you to the test to see if you can get this figured out and understand what's going on. And, even if you can't, if you want to just stay, as basic as you can about it, you have that option, but it's not the only option.
Yeah, dude, that's super well said. It's not going to overwhelm, but it's going to challenge you. Mm-hmm. I think that's just right, because so far what we see, I feel like this is pretty seeker sensitive. where the abilities, you have a general idea of like what they do. Okay, that's cool. Like I can work with that. And stuff kind of opens up as you continue on with your character. Like you don't have to go with techniques. You like the day helms, you don't even have to use them. You don't have to.
Yep.
But once you know how, you'll understand, oh, there's more I can do. There's more I can do. And adding that kind of interest, like, does 200 fire damage just isn't very inspiring to me. But when it gives me an opportunity to figure things out, that kind of discovery, man, that's the kind of interest that I think draws people into a game and makes them remember things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I mean, even the wizard seemed interesting, right?
well, the spell reflect, I mean, I can tell you that ability, we talked about it on a previous show. It was regard to the Enchanter ability. I was sure that the Enchanter had the spell reflect, but I'm thinking it's similar, but it's not the same. It's like spell capture or something like that, and then you shoot it.
Yeah, the Enchanter could like take the spell and then use it at will, which is like another level.
Yeah, and this sounds like it's more of a mirror type effect. That's amazing, right? Like that's a skill that we sort of dream about, but we don't actually see it in many games. There's not
really
many,
don't, yeah.
At least not in MMOs, really. So,
yeah, I mean, like I say, even the wizard stuff is like exciting me, even though I don't plan on playing a wizard. But like,
I like how you said that all dismissively. You're like, I don't plan on playing a wizard.
Like I am committed to the shaman until the druid's out. I'll probably have alt of every kind, of course, but this makes it easier for me to like tell other people about Pantheon and be like, hey, I know you. I bet you would like this, right? And especially because some things are a little bit relatable. So like the wizard's focus fire, like I mean, come on, it's basically, if anyone played Path of Exile, it's like the skill discharge, which is just such an interesting thing to build around. Or a refocus, like insane utility. And it's not even just like a slap it and forget it. Like it actually rewards you preparing, and gives you this kind of extra reward if you're really thinking about how you're planning out a fight, right? Because sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit.
You're really in the zone. You're enjoying it, and rightly so.
It's just like for example, with the refocus, wizard, they use mana. It's just, you're going to expect your wizard to go out of mana, right? Even though their focus, you build it up to gain lowered mana cost.
Yes.
Now, which I think, again, all the wizard changes is like super awesome. I love how it sounds, but being able to like successfully kind of bounce around and maintain like a bunch of focus, like I actually kind of did the calculation. Like, I don't know if it's possible to get maximum focus in every different element, but if there's 4 elements. Well,
you know what? This is, again, now talking about this makes me want to try the wizard again, because this was a big part of my feedback from Devair, was talking about how it was pretty clear what the best rotation was. Not a rotation, but the best sequencing of your abilities was. There was really no other option. But now we've got spell weaving, we've got this focus, new mechanic, the the ability to refocus. Like, these skills that are really playing more with your mana usage are going to be a huge difference. It's going to play completely differently.
Oh yeah, you would know, like, if it is possible to kind of manage your focus and build it up across all elements, like as wild as a juggling act that might be, like, you could imagine. So at least from what we've seen on the streams and stuff, so each element, 4 elements, and there's like 5 kind of sections of each bit, and you could totally imagine, let's say your wizard is just killing it and they're doing super well, but it's been, several fights, they've just been going at it, but they've built up their focus to be like maximized in every single element. And then at the end of the fight, they just hit that refocus button, boom, full mana.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And it rewards thoughtful play. And that's kind of my whole point here, is that, all 3 classes they showed in this segment just got a whole lot more interesting and dynamic. And I couldn't be happier, man.
I know.
I can't wait till the next time they do this segment, regardless of what classes, like obviously. But I just, man,
Yeah.
I can't wait to see this go across the other classes, and this changes the game for me. So I'm gonna take a breath now. I don't think I've ever gotten so excited about a wizard in my life, so forgive me.
Well, you know what? That's okay. That's okay. We live to be excited about things that we may or may not have seen or experienced yet. So that's what this is all about. Yeah, like we haven't even seen the other classes. That we didn't see any of the skills of the cleric. We didn't see any of the skills relating to the rogue or any of the changes that may have been made there. So there's still a lot to learn. And, there's also a ton more we could talk about in terms of what they said the September pre-alpha test is going to look like. They listed all the new systems that are going to be in live for it. That includes the weather systems, the day and night cycle, which we were told repeatedly to make sure we have a torch.
Yes, he made it very clear. Like, don't sell your torch.
You need that torch. So, maybe Drac can make a killing buying up all the torches and selling them back to people who've mistakenly forgotten their torch. They talked about the banking system is in. Sprinting mechanics is in, which is going to be super crazy.
Yeah.
There'll be limited crafting and harvesting, and I think you made a good notation here to point out that it might just be only refining is going to be in for testing. It doesn't look like we might not be able to make full items yet, so it's a good caveat there. And I got to give a shout out to Minus and Ronak, who came on Pantheon plus you afterwards to talk with us, and these guys are tireless, and just giving us a chance to talk with them about what this upcoming test means for VR was invaluable. I specifically asked them because it's been on my mind, how VR is feeling about this test in comparison to the past ones, given that it's been so long since we've had a real pre-alpha test. And the discussion we had was very helpful because they talked about, look at the world of Terminus, how it's changed both visually and mechanically. The climbing, the content placement, everything that goes along with that. Ronak said that they don't feel any more pressure than they usually do, but of course they want players to be happy. They want it to go well. They're excited about how different things are going to be. And Minus is, talked about how it's like getting on stage and the anticipation is there. It's real, but they're focused on the light at the end of the tunnel, and knowing where they're going and being able to achieve those goals he suggested that's how VR's feeling right now. That's their mentality. So I was, after the show, sort of left with a really strong belief that, this September, people are going to be talking about Pantheon in quite a different way, if that makes any sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, I know this is where, you want to make sure we didn't neglect to mention something, Des. So I'll give you an opportunity to sort of, anything else that stood out from the stream, anything else you wanted to talk about today?
Dude, how did you miss the death mechanics?
Well,
we went this whole entire section.
I left space for you.
Oh, well, okay. Well, yeah, so near death and the death penalty. They're in.
Yes.
They're
in.
They're in.
Maybe that's going to convince me to play a cleric. Maybe that just made up my mind.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go. The circumvent how many deaths you're sure to accumulate in the future. I see.
Caused by my poor barriers.
But yeah, man, I know I already really gushed about the class update, so I won't go too crazy. But I'm so happy that how they did the ending segment. We haven't really talked about that yet, but they called it Around the World, and I've been asking for before and after shots for a while now, and they just did such a good job here. I love that they labeled the video. They labeled it, very clearly 2021 and then 2022. And I know it probably seems like really like obvious, because one's gray box and the other looks like a game. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like that specific labeling I think is so meaningful and important because really it was just a year ago, 2021, when the game looked like that.
Yeah.
And 1 year later, here we are. Like that shows undeniable progress. And also just kind of underscores what I've been saying about this next test, which is that we're basically going to be playing a new game. Yeah. It's been a long time since we tested, for sure. But in the grand scheme of things, a lot has happened in that time as well. It's not going to be any minor changes. It's going to be revolutionary, man.
Yeah.
It's going to be a revolutionary experience, and I'll probably get emotional.
Well, I got to tell you, I haven't looked forward to something like this in a long time, like this on this level in a long time. So it's going to be monumental. I'm gonna throw in a commentary here that because it was something I saw on Discord earlier today, just in terms of a critique of this stream, because I want to balance things out a little bit. We've been sort of gushing, but this was very much a stream focused on the VIPs and the pre-alpha testers. There's like I said earlier, it's a small group of people in the numbers game. So I don't know if this stream really did much for people who are not going to be in the testing process. And I saw that criticism, and I do agree with it. If I had to shift my perspective a little bit and take myself out of my perspective, I would agree with that, because like you said, the 2021 versus 2022 video was good in terms of showing progress. But what they mostly talked about on this stream was what to expect in the next pre-alpha test. Now,
yeah,
I find that it's valuable. It's still indicative of progress. But if I was not a pre-alpha tester, I might feel a little bit bummed or feel a little bit, left out of the party. Maybe better way to put it.
Yeah,
so I get it.
I could totally see that. At the same time, I have to point out that, like, even though the subject is pre-alpha, regardless of if you can play it or not, progress is progress. And and so even though they seem to be addressing pre-alpha testers a lot in this stream, I could still try to separate the direction there for just kind of looking at the footage, looking at the stuff that was revealed. The burning questions, yeah, that was straight from PA, and that's all about PA. But a good, half of the stream, I would say, is pretty separated from PA, really. It's just kind of general progress, even though it is talking about PA. So I could go either way, but I could see you feeling that way, right? Like, but at the same time, and this might just be my bias, because I know I'm going to be testing, but like, it's still good progress, and I hope people see that even outside of the PA community.
For sure. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so we'll wrap it up there. But I do want to mention, don't forget, next week is VR's newsletter week. So check those inboxes on Thursday, August 18th for the August newsletter. And let's talk about Pantheon Plus content for the upcoming week. You can see we've got our calendar up on the screen right now. And as usual, Monday midnight, Drac and his buddies are streaming EverQuest Norath After Dark on Twitch at midnight Eastern time. Tuesday, MMOs 101 is back for session 2 of Elder Scrolls Online. That's 9 p.m. on Pantheon Plus Twitch channel. Here's the big one. Wednesday, on Man of Rohan's YouTube channel, you are going to be seeing the sea shanty. And I'll give you a little bit of background on this. This involves some of us at Pantheon Plus, as well as some other folks, doing our best to get you in the spirit for Pantheon with our sea shanty, donning our sea shanty personas, our pirates and sailor personas, trying to, and this has been a long time in the making. I'm so happy that we're getting this out there and done. And I know, Desren, you are involved in this as well. And you are probably... Spoilers. Yeah, me and you.
There are a lot of hoods.
Yeah,
right.
Nice. That's a great preview. I was going to do like a teaser trailer, but just that alone is good enough. Who needs a teaser?
That's all you guys get. You gotta watch his video. You gotta watch it.
Yeah, so if you're not subscribed to Man of Rohan on YouTube, go there now. Do it now. Set a notification up to when it goes live, because you're not going to want to miss this one. Yep. Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern, the MMORPGs 201 returns for another Elder Scrolls Online session. Desert, how fun was our pilot episode, right? I mean, when you weren't playing in French, that is, I should say.
Oh, that was just so random. But yes, it went super smoothly, and I had a great time, and I hope our viewers did too. A lot of people came over to YouTube just fine. So, we did make sure to be clear that, yeah, it's on YouTube. Our
Yes.
201's on YouTube. I'll just shout it like 1,000 times. But thanks everyone that came out. That was super great.
Yeah, I really appreciated everybody that came out to support us for our first show. I mean, our first show and we had 20 viewers. It was awesome. That's a total success in my mind. So thank you, everyone. And come back for next Thursday again, same time, same place. And then, of course, on Thursday as well, a little later in the evening at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, Sparrow is streaming some WoW on her Twitch channel. And on Friday, Redbeard Flynn is doing a first impressions video about Lotro, Lord of the Rings Online. Some exciting changes going on with that game coming up with their development stuff. So that's at 9 o'clock Eastern on Friday. Saturday, our buddy CryptFox is doing a charity event on his Twitch channel. That starts at 4 p.m. Eastern. So definitely check him out and tune in to support the cause that he is running his charity for. And that is it for this week's VR News and Notes.
The Pantheon community is full of cool projects, new people, and things that are just worth sharing. What's this over here? Look at that. So let's see what we can find in this week's Community Spotlight. All right, this week's been pretty crazy, but I've got to throw in our awesome community content because there's quite a bit. And while we get to skip the community discussions just in favor of time because it's a dev stream week, you guys knew we're going to talk a lot, but this is important. So I'm sure next week is going to have even more content too, since this dev stream was a lot. And newsletter next week, it's going to be crazy. So, but first off, again, Sir Medieval, he did this interesting little thing, a kind of like prequel video to the dev stream, laying out his expectations. And I really wasn't expecting this, pun intended, I guess, but I think it's a really cool idea to kind of put your predictions out there ahead of a content release, right? Of course, the stream's happened now. So as of this recording, I haven't seen his take on the stream yet, but of course, I'll be looking forward to seeing those thoughts. See if those expectations were met.
Yeah. No, I haven't had a chance to check it out either, but he's continuing with his Pantheon coverage and getting lots of eyes on the project.
Oh yeah. Speaking of, he did release another video last Saturday, which unfortunately was like after we recorded, so I missed it for our last rewind. But got to throw that in here because it was on crafting and gathering, interestingly enough, and so that's like kind of a in depth on Pantheon systems there. But yeah, again, it's really cool to see so much Pantheon content coming from Sir Medieval. I mean, especially considering like, dude gets more views than even the main channel for Pantheon. He does.
And the crafting information is actually pretty hard to parse. It's quite buried. You have to look for it really hard. So kudos to him for doing that research because that's a topic that I don't find very easy to dig up information on. Yeah.
Yep. So awesome stuff there. I'm sure we'll be seeing more. Speaking of, I guess twofer videos this last week, we got Tango Hotel. He did a big video on enchanters, and I almost missed this actually, but another big one on Pantheon's dungeon design. And I will admit I haven't had time to watch the whole thing or either of them yet, besides
Neither
the first few minutes.
I haven't had a chance either, so I can't really talk about them, but it's stuff to watch. It's content, right? I'll watch it.
Yeah, it's been crazy, and I'll look forward to watching more because he's been cranking them out, man. So put Tango Hotel on your subscription list because he's doing Pantheon. And this is like a week of twos actually, because we've got two videos from Renfail too that at least touch on Pantheon. And so one of them is direct. It's about being Pantheon patient, which honestly, I don't think we have enough time to get really into it here on the show, but you alluded to it in the intro. But it's a very interesting discussion. In short, I think he might be a little bit over extrapolating about what being Pantheon patient means. It kind of makes it mean a little bit more than I think it's really meant to. But the discussion around it, got to give props to that because it's a good thing to talk about.
That's right. I'm glad you said that because it's as much as I pretty much disagree with a lot of the things he said in that video. It's fine to have that discussion. I'm not averse to having the discussion. I think that there's a lot we could talk about with that, and but everybody has their own take on things, and that's what makes it so interesting, right? If it was all just everybody was in step with each other and looking at things the same way, it would be boring. So I watched it and it got me fired up and I wanted to talk about it. So we'll do that maybe some other time, but I like that he's putting that kind of content out there. So kudos to him.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And another kind of more minor mention, I would say, but he also did a dive into the difference between pre-ordering and pledging. And so this is kind of interesting because, he had the legal bits behind that, which, and obviously it applies to Pantheon. So both of those videos are going to be in the description, as with everything, right? Because one thing he does a lot is these analyses from his position, which is rather unique compared to a lot of the community. So it's just really good discussion stuff. If you're into, getting your mind poked a little bit and actually having to formulate your own your own opinions, his videos are really the way to go. So check those out.
Yeah, exactly.
Now for a few quick kind of shout outs. So on one hand, we've got Rive Genesis. So he threw out a really quick video about kind of what the best case scenario for the MMO genre would be for him. And while it's just kind of a mention, you'll bet that Pantheon is in there, right? And I actually, to spoil it a little bit, I really love his take, which is basically like, I want everyone to succeed.
Well, and his point was, I think, more competition is better. It's better for the genre if there's more competition. And he said, the thing that I really took away was the tribalism is what damages the genre. When you get these people locked into just their game is the best and everything else should go away, that's the problem. So he made a great point there. I mean, there was a 3-minute video, I think, but he really got his point across. It could have been easily a 30-minute video. You could make a video essay about that, but it's he's right, 100% right. That's one I agree with, and I would still want to have a discussion about it. But yeah.
So props to Rive Genesis, doing great stuff over there. I love his outlook on these kind of general MMO things. But I'm glad he's taking a look at Pantheon. Before we kind of like move on, I got to give a shout out to Sparrow, who, speaking of quick videos,
Sparrow did a video. I love her videos.
So this is just like a quick breakdown of the August calendar. But I think this is great for people that prefer getting their information from YouTube rather than having to read through releases or go on Twitter or whatever. So it's just short and sweet, to the point. But yeah, nice extra thing to just keep people up to date,
Yeah. I want to shout something out too, because I got a message on Twitter asking if, from folks, somebody I think that we've actually mentioned in YouTube, reading the comments. I think they were a commenter on one of the Pantheon topics that was thrown out. Anyway, it's from Galerain, and they're building a Pantheon website called The Old Code. It's actually a guild website that they're building with a focus on Pantheon, because they're going to have a guild when the game comes out. So they asked if they could link our Twitch channel on their site, and I said, of course, yes. And I said, hey, can I give you guys a shout out on the rewind? And they said, yeah, that'd be great. So I'm just going to read what Galerain messaged me. They said, The Old Code started back during the early days of gaming. We were the third kin created in Lotro, and they've been together through other games while patiently waiting for Pantheon. They're more family-oriented, so grandparents, some of the original EQers, parents, more recent gamers, and the children, who are the future of gaming, they can all play. And basically saying, every subscription is going to help out the game that they all want to play, right? That we all want to play. So I think that's great. They're building a website. So I've linked the link for that in the show notes and the comments. You can see it's at theoldcode.org. So if you want to go check out their guild website, it's a neat thing. I've got it bookmarked already. So yeah,
that's super cool. I'm really glad you shouted that out. I love it.
Yeah, it was nice. It was just sort of a random DM on Twitter. I'm like, all right, what's this? let's talk.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Well, as usual, if we missed anything, or if you've got some Pantheon content to let us know about, like the above, feel free to shoot me a message on Discord, and we can get that spotlight on, anything coming up in this I mean, let's be honest, kind of quickly growing community of Pantheon content creators, right?
Yep.
And I mean, honestly, at this rate, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up with them. Like, I know that I kind of joked about not being able to watch all the videos, and I'm starting to feel it.
No, maybe we need to change up our format or something. Maybe we need to make a separate thing. Who knows? But
I don't know.
It's growing.
Actually, on that note, speak to our viewers here. If you're at this point in the video or in the show, I guess, podcast, I mean, go ahead and leave a comment and let us know if this section has been like useful for you guys. Because my hope is that this section lets people know about folks they might not otherwise hear about, right? So if you found someone through this segment, or even if this is just like the part you skip, kind of please leave a comment. Give your feedback. I want to always be improving this show and see where people are at. I love this segment, but at the same time, like you said, maybe it deserves its own thing, or we could reformat or something. Just let us know. That's going to be my kind of prompt for you guys. And as usual, while you're down there, you can always check the description. It has the links to everything we mentioned in the show. Try to make it nice and easy for you guys to find people. So I think that is going to be it for this week's Community Spotlight.
Sit back and relax. It's time for The Lore You Know. It's actually kind of amazing how much lore we've gone through on the show, and there's still more to tell. So one tale that we haven't delved into is the tale of the Twin-Head God. This is an older one, VR released in, I think it's 2018, it might have been 2019, but it hasn't made its way to the website since the website was rebuilt. So it definitely needs to be heard. I did a video about this quite a while ago, and the tale speaks of the old world of Terminus. It's a place before the arrival of the Nine Races, of a more primal land and place where the deities not known in the current timeline existed yet. And it's within the tale that we actually learn a great deal about lycanthropes on Terminus and their origins. So gaze up to the full moon and let's listen for primeval sounds of the world as I read the words of J.N. Gerhardt, Pantheon's lead writer, in the tale of the Twin-Head God. Long before the celestial boundary was enacted and the activity of gods was greatly restricted, a deity known as the Twin-Head God would roam across the mortal realm. This divine being would take the form of an immense, two-headed wolf, a physically matchless creature whose presence silenced even the most arrogant of heroes. A solitary creature with few rivals or followers, the Twin-Head God wandered alone throughout the world for a time. In these early ages, the Twin-Head God was a passive observer of mortal kind, watching the peoples of his planet strive for survival and knowledge, power and peace. Most often, he would simply watch these pursuits from within the folds of reality, hidden from all but the most spiritually aware. It is said he was even a hunter, but in those days, his prey was solace. The realm of the Twin-Head God was a wilderness of spirit and soul, where the humble thrived but the proud could not endure. Here, he would commune with the mortals who found the door to his wilderness, teaching them the hidden paths of wisdom that exist in their world, and also how to survive in his. Yet the peoples of the mortal realm would eventually lose their zeal for rigorous, contemplative disciplines. Their kingdoms found purpose by pursuing war and wealth instead of wisdom or worship. Over time, the ancient pathways of knowledge were forgotten, along with the way of the wilderness of the Twin-Head God. Most of the few mortals who did access the wilderness brought with themselves anguish and fury, seeking his hidden wisdoms as if they were weapons to be forged. Their spirits were stricken with a lust for power, and soon the wilderness that had stripped so many bare in refinement was itself being stripped of purpose. The home of the Twin-Head God became a cauldron of chaos. Transformation came as well to the Twin-Head God himself, yet it came with a great schism. A desire to wield greater influence in the mortal realm grew in both heads, though their aims could not have been more divergent. At this time, each took their own name, the left being called Lycus, or Steward of the Seeker. The right became known as Noct, the Knight of the Wilderness. With each passing year, the two grew more distinct in personality and thought,
and the twin-head god became divided within himself. Lycus was sympathetic to the needs of those who sought his wilderness out of a sincere desire. Thus, he became a safe haven for sojourners of the soul. However, Noct was not equally yoked. His mind had deteriorated into that of a half-god of mayhem, his furious vengeance aging into an insatiable desire for destruction. He too found satisfaction by leading mortal kind, though as a deceiver who tricked individuals and snared entire nations to their doom. He moved their leaders like pawns toward war, driving otherwise healthy kingdoms to ruin. Sacrifices of appeasement meant no more to Noct than swarms of flies gathered around his clawed feet, and when the fighting finally ceased, Noct would join in devouring the bodies of the dead that lay frozen on the fields of battle. This was the capstone of his fury, as those souls would spend their next life in tormented churning in the stomach of his immortal body. Though Lycus shared a body with Noct, he dreamed of a different fate for mortal kind. He believed mortals could still find the ancient pathways of knowledge and thrive, and to that end he crafted a plan in secret. For when Noct devoured the dead armies of mortals, he would fall into a deep sleep, lasting for days and even weeks. In this window of time, Lycus would scour the afflicted world, searching for those who he had communed with in the wilderness. Throughout the globe he found them, and requested they journey to a summit on this mountain called Shadir. He whispered to them the first step of his plan. When Noct next slumbered, he would call for them with a great howl. They were to keep their ears open, for it would echo from Shadir and ripple across the planet. Then, quickly, they must fly to the mountain Shadir, for Noct would not rest forever. Nearly all of those he encountered agreed to the task, and thus they waited for his howl. Lycus unleashed his great howl at Noct's next slumber. This cry was heard by all, yet recognized only by those who had been in the wilderness. In the weeks thereafter, hundreds of his communers made the treacherous trek to Shadir, from nearly every nation, tribe, or clan in the world. When the summit was full, Lycus revealed his plan. This select group of mortals would find and preserve the forgotten knowledge that lay hidden throughout the world. The violence of this tormented age was to be outlasted rather than directly resisted. By these hidden wisdoms they would survive, and along with them his wilderness would be restored, but no more would he confess to them.
And that is the lore you know. And that is also it for episode 114. And thank you, Desrin, the warden of all things good and naturey, for duoing this episode with me, my man.
Dude, I actually didn't even check the notes to see which lore bit you were doing, and you totally made my week by doing this story. This one is so cool. I'm so excited.
Super sweet. That's why it's one of the first videos I actually ever made when I started making lore videos, was the Tale of the Twin Head God, because I thought it was like it's so quirky and cool, but and it's just it's like laden with all these little hints about things that we might be in the world. Love it. So
good job.
And it's a long one too, so it's going to take us a few episodes to get through it. So it takes the heat off me for coming up with something every week for that one. But anyway, thank you everyone for hanging out with us this week. You know what to do if you like what we're up to here at Pantheon Plus. You can join our now 3,000 subscribers here on YouTube by hitting that button and keeping the channel growing. So, but more importantly, staying Pantheon patient and enjoying the ride. So until next week, cheers and thanks for listening.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Pantheon Plus is not affiliated with Visionary Realms. Be sure to check out our Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube channels under the name Pantheon Plus. You can follow Theric at Pantheon Theric on Twitter, and Desrin at Desrin Does also on Twitter. And you can stay up to date with all things Pantheon at www.pantheon.plus. Until next time, cheers, and thanks for listening.